Hello and welcome to the Two Robbies Podcast, your destination for in-depth discussion and analysis of the Premier League and the Champions League. I'm Robbie Mustoe, he's Robbie Earl, and here are today's topics. Man City's dominant performance over United at Old Trafford, but does it even matter for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and his future? Farewell to Daniel Farke at Norwich and Dean Smith at Aston Villa. West Ham into third place after their deserved win over Liverpool. Antonio Conte's first Premier League match with Spurs, the arrival of Eddie Howe at Newcastle, and Arsenal. Yes, Arsenal into fifth place. That's what we've got coming up in today's show. Robbie Earl, I feel like we say it every time. What an action-packed weekend of Premier League action on the field, off the field, highs, lows. Amazing stuff, mate.
Yeah, this was special just before the international break, mate. I mean, when you think of what's happening on the pitch, what's happening off the pitch, the storylines, the league table, who's beating who's in a job. It's just, I mean, it's remarkable. We were closing our show on Saturday. We hear that Daniel Farke has lost his job. We're opening up on Sunday. We hear that Dean Smith lost his job. I mean, just incredible scenes where you're never quite sure what's coming next.
We don't. We'll touch on those two a little later on, Rob. But let's get back to the football. And the big game this weekend was always going to be this last game of three for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in charge of Manchester United. He had 3 games to save his job. Spurs victory, Atalanta draw, and a Man City loss at home. Before we get on to the repercussions or what it means for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Rob, let's just talk about the game for a little bit and how dominant it was for Manchester City and how easy it was for them. And Man United and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer had absolutely no answers to the slick passing football of Pep Guardiola.
Well, we know the resurgence of United with the win at Tottenham and ending up being a late draw from Atalanta relies heavily on the form of Cristiano Ronaldo. But you could also say Rafael Varane playing the central of a third centre-back partnership has calmed things down, has brought a little bit of experience and understanding of the 3 centre-back role. So with Varane missing, Rob, the questions were, and we did a tactical breakdown that if anybody wants to go and see a tactics session on what we thought the shape of Manchester United would be, how that works for them in some ways with players they can get in the team, or possibly could work against them against a City team playing with a false 9. And so it played out that Ole went with a back 3 of Bailly, of Lindelof and Maguire, and then wing-backs Wan-Bissaka and Luke Shaw, assuming the hope that the 3 gives us extra defence, that the 2 wing-backs can at times get forward and supplement the attack, and they can at least have some possession. The reality was, Rob, they got absolutely mauled, especially in the first 45 minutes. The 2 wide players from Manchester City, it was Jesus and it was Foden on the left-hand side, stayed really wide and pinned the fullbacks. Bernardo Silva was the false 9 for Manchester City. And then we had times when De Bruyne joined them, when Gundogan joined them, where they actually got pinned back as a 5, Rob. And it was almost excruciating to watch because as we were watching the game and you're shouting to me, he's got to change it. Manchester United just couldn't get near the ball, couldn't touch the ball, couldn't keep the ball for more than 2 or 3 passes. And the dominance of football, the comfort in which they probed and drew Manchester United all over the park was as embarrassing as the Liverpool game, if not worse. The goals didn't go in, Rob, but the opportunity, and apart from De Gea playing brilliantly in the first half, albeit he let a second goal in, it was a dominant display by City and a disastrous display by United.
I understand why Solskjaer went for 3 at the back again. I understand it. Defensively, they've been awful. Extra central defender to help in difficult situations in games makes sense. After the first 10 or 15 minutes, obviously they're 1-0 down at that point to the Eric Bailly own goal. I just expected Ole Gunnar Solskjaer to realise where the problem was. And the problem was there are 3 guys in midfield, Bruno, McTominay and Fred, are kind of narrow, Rob. And you had 2 players in Mason Greenwood and Cristiano Ronaldo that are playing as central forwards. That's two guys pretty much out of the game defensively. So the fullback areas for Man City, and we know I've played in a 3-man midfield in a back 5, and you get pulled all over the place. But nothing was done. Okay, so that allows Kyle Walker and, more importantly, Joe Cancelo to have all the time in the world, Rob, to receive the ball. It's always an out ball. Again, you play in midfield, you close down in the middle areas, it goes to somebody and they pop it out to the fullbacks because they're an open space, because the wingbacks have been forced back. So, I mean, kind of a simple tactical adjustment, really, but nothing was made. And then from then on, you know, I don't even, the details are not worth going into, Rob. The bigger picture of how the gap is so big between the two teams, it was so evident and very damning on a manager at Manchester United has been there for 3 years now. He's had plenty of time. He's brought some good players into the football club. Expectations were of a title challenge this year, but it was a slow dismantling, dissection by Man City, where you get towards the end of the game, and City couldn't really be bothered to score more goals. So comfortable. It's one of those games where it looked like Man United had at least one player sent off, and City had the extra man. So, you know, we kind of, it's easy for us to criticize and to poke and stuff. I understand it's really torturous for Man United fans right now, and there's millions of them all over the world. The 3 games are up, and Spurs was better. Atalanta was a scramble that Ronaldo got them out of a really awful situation late in the game. And this one was another painful experience at home at Old Trafford against the guys down the street, the noisy neighbours, that was so far advanced in their football, their tactical protocols, and what their expectations were in the day of the football. I thought it was embarrassing. And, you know, it just begs the question, where do Man United, Robbie, will go from here?
Well, where do we go from here? You said at the top of your opening about, you know, the Manchester derby and you know, is our job safe? Right now, the Manchester United job is probably the safest job in English football. Nothing's going to happen to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. It was like a death by passing at the weekend. Manchester United passed them into submission. It was almost embarrassing. But you saw Ronaldo once looking around, just frustrated, like, what's going on with my team? And just basic things, Rob. Like, we're sitting there, and again, not that we know best or we know better than anybody else, but we're sitting in the game, we're talking about the tactics, we're looking at the shape, and we're seeing the 2 fullbacks from Manchester City causing all kinds of them. Cancelo, I mean, just basically had a freedom of the park, and he's such a good passer of the ball. So part of me thinks, Rob, where's the in-game tactics of Manchester United's coaching staff? Where's the in-game tactics to go, this ain't, understand why you go with the 3. Bailly gets an own goal, maybe disappointing, but, you know, you're not competing in the game, can't get any kind of control of the football and stop the bleeding. Where's the in-game tactic to change it? Why do we always have to almost wait till half time, like the game stopped? Why can't that be happening? Why can't after 20 minutes somebody go on that Manchester United side, not working, 3 ain't working today, off you come, on you go, 4 across, whatever, deal with the fullbacks. At least now we compete and start to play. That's my biggest criticism of what I saw at the weekend. There was nothing that Manchester United did to stop the flow.
And just flip it on the other side of that, Rob. You can stop all those problems if you keep the ball. If you keep possession of the football. Man City, when they play against really good teams, maybe more often in European football, in the Champions League, they actually pass the ball, keep the ball, and it forces Man City back a little bit. Because United couldn't keep the ball for 4, 5, 6 passes. Yeah. I mean, the pressing, you know, when they gave the ball away, Man City, they were very, very quick to win it back. And it's not easy to play out, but it's a big problem there, Rob. Just on this season, you know, I said on our air, like, when you sign Ronaldo, Varane, and Jadon Sancho for a lot of money, you expect the team to be better. I don't understand how they can get worse after signing those 3 players. You look at the league table right now, Rob. They're in 6th place, Manchester United. They're 9 points off the top. A top 4 challenge looks like that's where they're at, Rob.
That's it.
And
looks like that's going to be
right, and we got to go back to, the managers, and I think we agree that United are going to win some games. They've got tons of great players, so the top four challenge is always going to be there. So it's not feels like, well, if he gets 7th or 8th, then wow, we got somebody else to get in there to get into the top 4. I think he'll be around there for the most part. If they finish 4th, Rob, is his job safe at United this summer?
Yeah. With the way the club's run, with the people who run it,
can't be.
With getting if Champions League football is achieved, that gives them the money to be in the Premier European club competition. Rob, we've seen it. If things that have happened or continue to happen go on as they are, his job's safe. Let me chuck one out at you based on what I saw. And I don't know if it's a right thing or to say or not. I actually felt sorry for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer this weekend.
Yeah.
I felt sorry for him, Rob. The interview, and almost looked like he wants help. He almost like, get me out of here. I'm against Pep. I'm against Tuchel. I'm against Conte. I'm against these guys who are worldly, who are, experienced, tactically super smart and super astute. He's not that guy, Rob. He's not that guy. And it almost looked to me like, I don't think he will do this, but part of me feels like he could resign from Manchester United. This could be almost like, I'm not the right guy. He so wants to do well for this club. He's so that like he would sacrifice himself to say, do you know what? United can find a better guy than me. That's how I feel.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's the worst shout in the world. I really don't. We know his love for the club. We get that, and I actually kind of respect the Man United fans within Old Trafford that don't. They're not jeering and booing and chanting nasty stuff to their manager. And to be fair, I'm not sure they've done that with the previous ones, Rob, really, for the most part. And they've seen some frustrating times. I just don't know. I think he limps along until the end of the season. And who knows what managers might be available. Again, I made a comment this weekend that there have been 3 really good options that have been turned down in the trust kept in Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Michel Pochettino, we said it a million times. Some might argue, is he really an elite manager for Manchester United? I thought at the time he would have been ideal, looking for a job to come into the team. No, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer continued. Thomas Tuchel, Rob, was left Paris Saint-Germain. There was a month, I think, that he was twiddling his thumbs and available. Obviously, Chelsea got him. Man United didn't. And then the most recent one, of course, Antonio Conte, that we've talked a lot about this weekend. And we'll mention, of course, with Spurs because he's a new manager and we're expecting to do great things. Again, not considered. There was never any talk that he might come into the football club. So when you start to think about the future, and if he does limp to the end of the season, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, I still don't know which other great managers out there would be suitable for this job. And it's difficult to see that. Okay, Rob, let's switch it over to Manchester City because it's not all about Manchester United in this game. I thought Pep got his team purring beautifully. The football game, their passing game was as sharp as it's been for a long time. The tactical kind of, I don't know, the comfortable nature of this team with his tactics is pretty good, isn't it? And if you give him a little bit of space to play, he will do that. Enables his team to get forward. If he does give the ball away, the team, they're all over it very quickly to get back. They get you in this vice-like grip that's hard to get out of. Again, we talked about number 9s, Rob, and strikers, and are they going to score enough goals? I think we differ a little bit on that. This is a day that you can say, who cares about a striker? Because they scored a couple of goals, could have got more. They were good, mate, weren't they?
They were very good. We looked at on the tactics of how he might play. And wondered who might be the false 9. Would it be Foden? Niall said Jesus might not be a bad option just to be able to run in behind.
We got it wrong again.
What's he do? Stick Bernardo Silva in there. It was interesting, Rob, though, in his pre-match interview, he talked about wanting to play the wide players on their natural side. So a left-footed player on the left wing, maybe to stretch out. Right-footed player on the right-hand side, Jesus, to stretch out and Foden the other. And it pulled that Manchester United defence across the width of the pitch, and that's when he can start to get them holes that he goes into. And it was interesting because, again, just before on a Friday press conference, he was asked by one of the journalists, don't you think you need a number 9? And he did. You sent me the clip. He did the biggest eye roll I've ever seen. A bit like when they win and dominate a team like United, no one talks about who they're missing.
No.
And then as soon as they maybe get a result that doesn't go, or they don't score in a game as he did against Palace, it's like, well, you need another 9. And he rolls his eyes. It's almost like he trusts in the process, Rob. Yeah. And we saw the process working at its very best against Manchester United. And it disables, as you said, the opposition. Now, are they going to be clinical? Are they going to create enough chances? Are they going to be clinical enough? Time will tell. The Gundogan back in the team, Bernardo Silva looking lively. Interesting, Rob, no Jack Grealish in this team. First time in a big game. Maybe Jack's been rested. Again, if you're going to play in his team, numbers are important and goals are going to be important because they're going to have to spread them around, not having that number 9 that other big teams do.
Yeah, he's not the best player at this football club. He's not. I mean, he's right up there with some of the best of the team. Of course he is. He's a brilliant player, Jack Grealish, but Pep's got options, and that was what he said. He didn't want a right footer on the left side to stretch those 3 centre-backs, and that actually where they did win the game. In general, and we'll move on in a second, just last point.
Yeah.
In general, teams attack in the wide areas or in the inside areas. And this game, Pep's thinking, well, they've got 3 in the middle of the park. They have 3 centre-backs. They're kind of strong in the middle. Let's attack them in the wider areas. Crosses, left footers. On the other side, the right footers, they stretched them. That's what they attacked in this game, down the outsides. Then it worked a treat. Bailly's own goal. Didn't defend Bernardo Silva. Luke Shaw let him steal in at the back post there. But anyway, yeah, masterclass from Pep. Really, really great and thoroughly deserved. And again, City are going to be there or thereabouts at the very end for sure.
Yeah, there's no doubt that Man City takes some of the headlines for the weekend, but other big headlines, my friend, were breaking as we were going off air and coming off air on the weekend. Daniel Farke sacked by Norwich City after his first win after 10 attempts this season. They played Brentford, his 11th game this season, and they end up winning that game. He gets sacked after. All the news was that he was told before the game. They didn't break the news till after. He was given time to speak to his family. It was broke to the players. But maybe by Daniel Farke's reaction to the goals that went in, there was a sense that it was already, that the departure was going to happen. And I think we both feel sorry for Farke and that he's come up. He's had a good go. I think he gives of his best, but he's just been caught short. But any problems with the sacking, Rob?
Oh, no, I really don't. And in fact, it's like, I just think, often when somebody gets sacked, I sometimes say, you know what? Were they really sure he wasn't the right guy? Couldn't they give him a little bit more time to give him a chance to get himself out of trouble? We're going to go and talk about one of those in a second. But this is not the case here. They knew. It's like, well, there's no arguments here. You've had 4.5 years in the job. You've done a great job getting them from the Championship to the Premier League. First time around, not very good. Really poor attempt. Okay, we'll stick with him. Love to see that. Gets him back out again. Okay, second attempt. Still not very good. So at that point, it doesn't make sense to continue with him. They can switch and hopefully get a new manager, bounce, reorganize, maybe have a chance to end the division, and then somebody else will take over to try again. And the philosophy of the club is ran really well, but somebody to do a better job once they get into the Premier League. That's where he's disappointed, and that's why he's lost his job. But again, 4.5 years, stability, continuity, love all that. But now you have all the answers to the questions you might have, and he wasn't able to make a dent on the Premier League in 2 attempts. So absolutely the right call.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I just think that the Norwich ownership group have to almost take a gamble in some respects, but give themselves a chance, Rob. They've got, 5 points now at the moment? It's only 5 away from safety. Yeah. If you get the right man in, things turn a little bit. The likes of Billy Gilmore not in the side, Todd Cantwell not in the side, not sure what's happened there, and maybe Farke's not integrated those players. So, yeah, I think giving it another go. And listen, at this stage, it's almost been like, well, Norwich are gone, it's 2 others. Well, maybe Norwich haven't gone and they've been brave. Let's see who comes in. Let's see what happens. But I agree. I think, as well as Farke's done, I know he had a 4-year contract, so I'm sure he'll have a decent compensation payout. It feels like the right move. The other one, my friend, and I know this is something close to you because it's a player you played with, Dean Smith parted company with Aston Villa. Now, Dean Smith went into the weekend, and we know he'd had 4 straight defeats, and there was a bit of pressure on. And we looked at his team, and we thought, well, listen, he needs a performance. He needs something to rally around him. They lost 1-0 away to Southampton, and had an Armstrong goal. And it would appear that, Rob, in the Premier League right now, if you lose 5 straight games, you lose your job.
It's going to be interesting, Rob, because I would say, my goodness, hasn't he earned the right to get it straight again, to get the team back on its tracks, to recover from his first real bad run of results, an unacceptable run that he's had in his 3 years at the club, done a brilliant job with them. So I was a little surprised. I think we realised Robert is getting under severe pressure. But, I mean, we have just got into November. There's another 27 games to go. This team is a mid-table, top 10 team. He said it himself. I'm going to be fascinated. New guy comes in.
Yeah.
I guess for it to have been the right call, the new guy's got to bring him up top 10, even higher, to prove that Dean Smith wasn't performing. There's always the argument that actually Jack Grealish went. Emi Buendia has done nothing. Leon Bailey, flashes of great stuff, but really hardly anything. Danny Ings has got some goals, but we know he has injury issues. I mean, we're not going to say they weren't good signings because it seemed at the time they were good signings. So without those players, this is a tough division and they're having a tough run. But I still a little surprised and disappointed to my previous point. If you're going to fire the guy, make sure that he is absolutely not the right guy, and that you are really worried about the future of the team, the direction it's going in, and more than there's a few injuries right now. We still haven't got Douglas Luiz, you haven't got Danny Ings in the team right now. I thought it was a little premature, but listen, we'll see who they bring in. There's a little bit of talk, a couple of people that's been reported already, Rob, that could be candidates. Ralph Hasenhüttl at Southampton. Yeah. And the other one that I think is particularly interesting, I think we've mentioned him for maybe a couple of other jobs on our podcast, is Steven Gerrard, the Glasgow Rangers, done a brilliant job north of the border, champions, conducts himself really, really well, knows the league. It's a big club with ambitious owners, money to spend. It's a good job for somebody at Aston Villa, and I would love to see, and again, I apologise to any Rangers fans. I can't imagine we've got many of them, but there might be some Glasgow Rangers fans listening in. I think Steven Gerrard is absolutely primed and ready with some good experience under his belt to come and have an impact in this Premier League. What do you think?
Yeah, I'd agree. I think he's a perfect fit. I disagree. I don't think this is a good club. I think this is a great club, Rob. I think this is a club of 45,000 people will fill that place if they get the right football. I also know it's a club with ambitious owners, and I think the ambitious owners, Rob, have probably pulled the trigger a little bit early on Dean Smith, which is a shame for Dean because I think they were 14th in the Championship when he took over. Yeah. Took him into the playoffs, won the playoffs, got him up, kept him up by a point. Project Restart looked better. I think it was 11th, and then all of a sudden, 5 straight defeats has seen the end of him. But that's the brutal nature of football. But it was interesting because as we were closing the show, I think it was on Saturday, and Rebecca goes through the league table. And remember looking at the table and saying to you, wow, Aston Villa, 10 points. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Not far away from the relegation. I just said, some owners will look at that and start to panic, like, 2 more defeats and we could be in the relegation zone. And I just wonder if some of that has happened, why Dean Smith, they force that. It's that period now, isn't it? There's 2 weeks of an international break. So, find your guy, bed him in, give him 6 weeks between now and the January window to look at things, get things right, maybe make some changes. So it is a bit of sort of the sacking moments in the Premier League. I think Dean Smith's just been a victim of that, and a victim maybe of ambitious owners who've just got a bit twitchy and decided to pull the trigger.
He'll get another job, mate. He will get another really good job in the Championship.
Yeah.
We may see him again in the Premier League because he did something for this club that many others tried and failed to do in terms of getting Villa back into the top flight. So I think he will be, obviously he's on the market right now, and he'll get a good job, and we may see him back. I hope we see him back.
We're seeing the numbers there, just Robert. Just quickly, though, 5 sackings in 36 days or 5 departures, we could say, maybe the Steve Bruce
within 11 match days. 11 match days.
I mean, that's crazy. And I don't think we're done there. I think there could be possibly one, maybe before Christmas. And then we know at the back end of the season, Rob, there's a couple of clubs who might be in trouble who'll gamble again. So I think the reality of going down now and not getting the riches of the Premier League matters so much to these teams that people are just prepared to do sometimes strange things to try and stay in there.
Just last word, mate, before we move on. And, you do look up the table and you think who's under pressure. And there's a few that might come into that category. Our producer, Jorge, chucked one in. I'm like, wow, yeah, you're probably right. Watford, Claudio Ranieri. I think they've lost 3 out of 4. I'm not being funny. They're 2 points off relegation zone. It is not crazy to think that he could be the next guy fired from a Premier League team. Watford, of course, already replaced their first man, Munoz, with Claudio Ranieri. Well, but they'll do that. If they don't think they got the right guy and there's not a manager bounce, they'll get somebody else in. Hayes and his team.
Nothing is ever out of the bounds and realms of Watford. There's one job that's safe. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Manchester United manager.
Oh, there you go.
He's safe. Okay, let's move back to the football, my friend, because we got a brilliant game at the London Stadium. West Ham United beat Liverpool, probably 2 of the most informed teams in the league going head-to-head. And it was a really intriguing game we were looking forward to, because a West Ham team that played in Europe on Thursday night but continued to do well in both competitions. A Liverpool team that come out of a good win midweek in the Champions League against Atleti, and then looking to establish themselves in the Premier League. So primed game, and one of those before we talked about before, where we said, like, this is a different West Ham, this is a different kind of test for Liverpool. And we both sort of agreed on the point that it wouldn't surprise you if West Ham won this one. So we're not surprised, mate, that West Ham got the job done.
No, we're not. I think we all know how good Liverpool are going forward. They scored 2 goals. They lost the game. And I think that's telling you everything. They've conceded 5 goals in the last 2 Premier League matches against Brighton and West Ham. And we know that they've conceded others in other games.
Yeah, 3 against Stamford, 2 against Brighton, 2 against...
So there is an issue there. The balance of the team, the attacking dial that I talk about is turned right up to attack full mode, and it's been brilliant. They've got 31 goals, 4 more than anybody else. They've got their full backline defenders fit, Rob, and that's a concern. Van Dijk stretched many times today. Matip, they got caught on the counter-attack for Pablo Fornals's goal. The 2 fullbacks are fit and raring and playing well for the most part, and yet they're still conceding a ton of goals. So Jurgen Klopp has got to find a way over the next few games, weeks or whatever, to adjust that attacking dial to have a little bit more security, insurance, get those front players a little bit more connected to the midfield to try and help defensively, because this open gung-ho will get more than yours. Yeah, they will many times, but against well-organised teams that have got pace and a threat on the counter-attack like West Ham do, this is their danger matches, and this absolutely was the case. First goal, Robbie, I want to jump to some of the controversy and the moments that decided this one. We've got friends in support both teams. We have messages and stuff. A few of my Liverpool fans were not happy, friends of mine, that the first goal should have been a foul. We both, when we did the highlight and looked at it from many angles, thought, you know what, that's not a clear and obvious error. Just reiterate to any Liverpool fans out there, Rob, that are still thinking, hang on, guys, that's a foul on Alisson.
Not for me. Listen, Liverpool defend, and where they're different than when I played is that they often allow an attacking player, not opponent player, to be next to their goalkeeper. And they're okay with that. They defend outside of that defender. Now, my worry with that is any ball in the box, the goalkeeper doesn't get a good view, doesn't get a clear run at the ball. Now, as you say, Gabriel Ogbonna is a big man.
Very big man.
He's standing next to Alisson as the ball's coming. Now, he has a right to jump. He has a right to use his arms. He has a right to get up, to leverage and try and head the ball in. For me, what happens is Alisson gets caught in an awkward position. He tries to lean in to get the ball, almost instigating the contact, and then he doesn't get the ball, and then he falls back flat on his back quite dramatically, and the goal goes in. Now, I was thinking about this, Rob, as we were coming to the podcast, because I know this was a quite controversial. And I think if you're a West Ham fan, you go great goal. If you're a Liverpool fan, you say foul. I put myself as in the game, Rob. Like, I'm a midfield player. I'm picking my man up. I see Ogbonna there. He jumps. My goalkeeper comes. The ball goes in the back of the net.
Yeah.
You know what my first thought was? Goalkeeper error. My goalkeeper's made a mistake. My first thought isn't foul, and I'm trying to be objective here. If I think it's a foul, if I'm in that team, I would say, oh, he's fouled my keeper. I'd have looked at my keeper and said, what are you doing? So, I didn't think it was a foul. Listen, other people can have another opinion. And if you slow something down enough, you'll see a picture where there's maybe an arm hitting an arm and it looks like contact. But in the context of the game, the way it was done, I didn't think it was a clear and obvious error. I thought it was a goal. And I think it was the right decision to give the goal. There's
another incident, Rob, that we'll touch on as well now from Aaron Creswell that nearly took out the legs of Jordan Henderson. I mean, it begs the question, Rob, and I think I know what you're going to say, but is there got to be solid contact with a challenge like that, or just the action? No. And by the way, I don't think there does.
No, it's a red card all day, Rob. And by the way, if Jordan Henderson is walking off the pitch with his leg in a cast, stretch it off, he'd have got a red card.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean.
That action that he took could have had that consequence. He was fortunate that he went between the legs of Jordan Henderson and missed him. And the bit about, he got the ball, getting the ball has nothing to do with it. You could either control yourself into the tackle or you lunge like he did. It was reckless. It was dangerous. I thought he was so lucky not to get a red card.
Yeah, I thought he was lucky as well. Yeah, I thought he was lucky as well, Rob. And Liverpool, just look at the league table, Rob. They're fourth.
Yeah.
Fourth now, Liverpool. 22 points, 4 points away from the leaders, Chelsea, right now. But the story, as much, of course, it's always going to be about Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp and that team and the way the balance isn't quite right. West Ham United. I mean, that in our broadcast, we focused on West Ham. We enjoyed the scenes afterwards. And it's a funny weekend, Rob, because you can reflect on, we've seen two managers get fired from this, from great clubs in this amazing league, in despair and disappointment, and then you see the scenes afterwards with the blowing bubbles and the songs going, and the West Ham players going to the fans, kissing their wives and their families and giving their shirts away and dancing Declan Rice in the middle of the park. You know, a club, West Ham United, that, I don't know about you, but when I played, so this is kind of back in the late 90s, they struggled a long period of time. If there's another group of fans, we've talked about Newcastle United, West Ham's another club that just want to get behind a really good and effective team that can be consistent, that plays the football when it can, but also has the steel and the attitude and the likability that this David Moyes team does. Just how good were West Ham today, Rob?
Again, thinking about things as I'm sitting down, and I'm not saying, I hope people take this in context. West Ham play like a top four club, Rob Muster. They have the discipline and organisation that Chelsea do. They can break in counter-attack like a Liverpool. They have wide players who are prepared to come back. Ben Rama and Bowen do what the Man United come back and help out and do their job. Yep. They've got pace and ability and threat through Fornals, through Antonio, through Bowen. They can beat you in many, many different ways. The other thing I think today is this is such a selfless team. And so I did a breakdown earlier today on Declan Rice. And the breakdown was how he's adding different dimensions to his game. And the breakdown showed him breaking through midfield. Great assist to Antonio, I think it was against Leeds. Great assist against Ben Johnson last week against Villa. And a great goal that he scores against Villa. And I'm saying he's adding something more to his game. So Declan Rice. Today, Declan Rice played the holding defensive midfield player pretty much more often than not next to Souček. Disciplined for his team, made it difficult for Liverpool to play in and get those little passing combinations, and was an outstanding captain at 22 years of age. I mean, I know you had some comparisons of whether Fabinho and people are up to that level. Right now, he's a Rolls Royce, my friend, but he's also a selfless player to a cause that David Moyes deserves a lot of credit for.
Yeah, and he would grace, he would enhance, he would add so much to any other team, anywhere. He's that conscientious, he's that good a player. I'll tell you who else is outstanding, Robbie Earl, and I'm going to go on to my underappreciated performer of the weekend, Ben Johnson. 21 years of age, a converted winger, has been at West Ham Academy since the age of 7 years old, I think it was. Has gone into the team as a right fullback. Vladimir Soufal, that did come into this match, has been brilliant at right back. You couldn't imagine that there's a player coming through the ranks of 21 years of age that might keep Soufal out of the side. Ben Johnson looks to be sensational. Physical, great power, great speed, good technical ability, good on the ball. Fans love him. You know, when you come through the academy at this football club, you know, you get an immediate respect from the fans. I thought Ben Johnson, and again, some of our listeners or viewers might not know much about him. Please watch for Ben Johnson, the right fullback for West Ham United, as we go through this season, because he had another great game today and in previous games. And I had my eye on him. I thought, today, you know what? I'm going to mention him. A right back. We don't get many right backs mentioned in the underappreciated category. Ben Johnson, again, some might not know him, but you should get to know him because I think he's got an outstanding future in the game.
Very good shout. Up against Sadio Mane and
Cool.
Robertson on that right side of the pitch did a brilliant job. Got good football genes, by the way. I think related to Paul Parker and Ledley King, so it's not bad genes to have if you're going to be a defender.
Yeah,
Ben Johnson's a good shout for West Ham, and plenty of love for David Moyes and his team. And just, you know, I've got, like you, many friends who are West Ham fans who have had some difficult times, some dark days, and never quite sure with the club and the ownership. Enjoy the next 2 weeks, West Ham fans. Enjoy looking at the table and seeing yourself sitting third, and know that you've got a club now and a manager who reflect what all the good things about West Ham
and the team is, Rob. If I was a West Ham fan and I set myself in that stadium, that huge stadium, and I'm seeing the likes of Fornals and Benrahma and Jared Bowen and Mikel Antonio and whoever's playing there working their socks off for the team. I think there was a comment afterwards that Fornals made, Rob, about, you know, we didn't get the first goal, it's an own goal. It doesn't count. It doesn't matter. It's a West Ham goal, and we celebrate all goals that our team receive. And I just think they're a team right now. They're making their fans very proud to be West Ham supporters. And, you know, again, they've waited a long time to really enjoy a team. And you're right. Third place right now, a couple of weeks to enjoy it with international break. Top class. The story, I guess, of the Premier League season so far is the achievements of David Moyes and West Ham United.
Here, my friend. Well said. Let's move it on to another man who's making his second Premier League debut, Antonio Conte, in charge of Tottenham. We saw him in charge in the Nations League, 3-2 win against Vitesse, which sort of summed up Spurs can go 3-0 up but can concede 2 pretty quickly against an Everton team that were 3 straight defeats under a little bit of pressure, Rafa Benitez. What did you make of Conte and his team? What did you like? What do you think there's work to be done? Where's the work to be done?
Well, there's a lot of work to be done. I thought, first of all, Everton played pretty well, actually. I watched their last game, really disappointing. They were better in the second half against Wolves. They lost the game 2-1. I thought they were better. I thought they were on the front foot. You know, at home, the onus is on you to try and push the game. I thought they were more proactive in the first half to try and win the game. But what we're seeing now with Antonio Conte, particularly after the first game, the Europa Conference game on Thursday, where they were 3-0 up, they conceded 2 goals, a bit crazy. He doesn't want crazy. I thought we saw a 5 at the back. This 3-4-3 can turn into a 5-4-1 with that defensive kind of posture. We saw that for the most part, and I get it. It's all about shape for him to be hard to beat for Antonio Conte, and we saw it. Yes, Spurs right now, one of the lowest scorers in the division, 9 goals. I think just Norwich City, Rob, scored fewer goals than
that's
Spurs.
Right. Yeah, it's true.
It was incredible to say that when they've got Heung-min Son and Harry Kane. Yeah. But he's going to go in there and start and build a foundation. That's what he's doing. I don't think he's got great defending players. I think it's an area that he'll try and upgrade in the January transfer window or maybe in the summer. But that's what he's doing. I want to be solid. I want to be strong. Yeah. And we're going to grind a little bit. Bit because we have got players in the attacking areas that will score goals, Rob. I thought Lo Celso. I thought Tonga and Ndombele come on and added in that front line later on. I thought Spurs finished stronger. We saw Doherty as well come on for Reguilon. So it's going to be a process. I think we've never expected it to be superb straight away. Yeah. I am expecting an improvement, and I think you're going to see that. But in terms of, I mean, he's hardly had like 2 days to work on team shape with the 2 matches he's had in only a few days in charge. So I think no surprises here. Actually, a decent clean sheet and something to build on for him.
Yeah, the clean sheet I think was important. I looked on my notes. I think go back to August before the last clean sheet. I think it was a 1-0 win against Watford for Spurs. So that's where he'll start. He'll work from the back. He'll get it right. The shape, as you say, was there. The structure was there at times. It was a 5-4-1 out of possession and more of a 3-4-3 when they go forward. But of the group you see now, Rob, and it's hard to say, and I'm not talking specifics, but of the nucleus of what you see now, how many players does he need to get through the window to be competitive for the second half of the game, for them to maybe have a bash at trying to get into that top 4?
3. I think 3. I think 2 central defenders, Rob. I think with the players they've got that can play wide, Reguilon, Doherty, Royale, Bergwijn, Lucas could maybe be your Victor Moses or your Ivan Perisic, your wingers that play wing back in one of his teams. 2 defenders and 1 central midfield player. Going to the front line, they got some, and Dumbly, Lo Celso came on a sub, Lucas, Harry Kane, Heung-min Son, Dele Alli is an attacking midfield player. I like the attacking players they've got. I don't mind the wing-back areas. I don't like, really, the centre midfield and the 3 centre-back area. Ben Davies and Eric Dyer are not the future in those positions. Respect them, of course. They've been this a long period of time, but I've watched a lot of games where you could question Eric Dyer and Ben Davies in terms of their defensive nous, determination, ability to keep clean sheets. So that's what I think.
Yeah, it's interesting. Definitely centre-backs, Rob, and midfield player. Wondering if Eric Dyer could be a midfield player in his style now?
No, absolutely not.
Because
terrible shout. He's no better than Blimmin Skip and Højbjerg, is he?
No, but what I'm saying is, if he changed his system to a 4, to a 3 midfield players, could he not be one of those sitting in there that allows you a little bit more to get a Dele Alli or stop shaking your head in that manner?
Well, Højbjerg, I'd prefer in that role.
I'm not saying I wouldn't prefer Højbjerg. I'm just saying if you've got Eric Dyer and you have to use him, he might not have the money. Certainly, Daniel Levy's not one of them. Here, Antonio, go and spend this. Here, Antonio. Might he be able to recycle Dyer into a holding midfield player where he has played before? So he's played for England. I think captain England one time as a holding midfield player.
No, I just don't see it. I understand the point, and he's done it before. I just think that Antonio Conte and Fabio Paratici, they're all over Italian football. We're going to see more Italian-based players come over to. We're talking about Franchese, the midfield player for AC Milan, who's a real good player as a central midfield player. One of the first. I think there's another defender that's been mentioned. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting, Rob. And it is going to take time. This squad has been kind of declining. The team has been declining. It's not an easy fix, but we know they've got a great manager. They've got a great manager in place now that's going to get them at it. And I guess all the players go off international duty. It's not ideal for him. We know that he prefers to take a team in the pre-season to get them grooved. So it's a little bit different. So it's going to take a little bit of time to get them looking how he wants.
Yeah, certainly keep an eye on that one, Antonio Conte in Tottenham. This guy's a winner. He generally gets silverware. We'll see if he can do it at the new White Hart Lane Stadium. Let's move on to another team who, well, doesn't seem to be done yet, but Eddie Howe, we believe, is talking to Newcastle and finalising his deal and his backroom staff going in as Newcastle's next manager. He was seen at the game, watching the game from the director box with Amanda Staveley. Reports that he's close to finalising that deal now in his backroom staff. They need to get him in the door and get this done, Rob, don't they? And start the process of making sure they stay in the league. Got to point out the game at Brighton, which is, a decent result, but 5 points from 11 games. They've still got a lot of work to do, this football club.
They got a lot of work to do. I think it's his assistants, isn't it? It's finalising the deals for his assistants before he signs.
A club this size, Rob, with all that's going on, it just feels a bit petty to me. Like, get it done.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I don't know what they're thinking. I mean, I can't imagine that Jason Tyndall and Eddie Howe are going to demand like
going to rock the Saudi public investment. Let me throw one that could be a slight, not issue, but Graham Jones was in charge for the 3 games. We believe, would relinquish that position when Eddie gets officially the job, and by the time hopefully we get back from the international break, Eddie's Howe's in charge. Graham Jones, Rob, has taken over from Steve Bruce, was tasked with, I think, 2 games. It's now turned out as 3. Obviously, a very good coach. Has worked with Gareth Southgate in England, Roberto Martinez in Belgium, so good reputation. Could Eddie Howe be saying, Graham Jones done a great job, but I'm not sure he want him as part of my staff. There seemed to be talk that the owners have guaranteed Graham Jones a job. Might Eddie Howe be saying, listen, there's a role for him, but maybe not in my coaching staff?
Yeah, that may be it. That may be it. I mean, if they said to Graham Jones, listen, we want you to stay at the football club, we know that Eddie Howe is very close to Jason Tindall. We know that they will be the A team in terms of the bench. And Graham Jones seems to me to be quite a forceful personality, opinionated. We know as a boy, it's his boyhood club, Newcastle United. He's a Geordie. He always wanted to go back there and coach or manage. He's getting a little opportunity now, which is going to end very, very quickly, it seems. But it's one to take notice of, and how his role evolves. Whether he is with the first team, I guess he could be part of the first team staff, assistant managers, first team coach. But yeah, that's an interesting one to see how they work together, because Eddie Howe he's got to hit the ground running, and he's got to figure out a way of playing a consistent team that balances attacking and defending. And that's my concern, is that we know Newcastle United, we know the way that they love their teams to play. They were the entertainers, weren't they, when we were playing that team that we had? And a lot of the fans want that and demand that. And Eddie Howe can try and provide that, given the resources that he's got. But he's got to be aware that if those players can't play that way and they turn the ball over, they're going to concede. And that's going to be the interesting thing in what I'm going to look for when he takes over.
Yeah, I'm interested in the identity that he goes, the football that he wants to play. Are this group, are these players sort of designed for that, or will he sort of make do as he goes along and build to what he wants? It's going to be interesting, because listen, many of these players over the last couple of years have not played with the ball. When Rafa was there, they were very much a sit-back, counter-attack. Steve Bruce, the same. So it's going to be interesting to see how Eddie does, but looking forward to seeing that Newcastle story, and obviously all the money that's there. You know, can they stay in the Premier League? That's first and foremost, finishing in 17th place. Let's quickly move on through a few games, mate. Chelsea won, Burnley won. I think Rebecca Lowe used the term, there was a bit of argy-bargy both on the field and on the touchline between Thomas Tuchel and Sean Dyche. 1-1 draw, good point for Burnley. I wouldn't say disappointing for Chelsea, but would obviously wanted 3 at Stamford Bridge. But I know you kept an eye on this game. Chelsea got the goal, had a few chances, didn't get the deal done, and Burnley get a goal for Matej Vydra.
They did, and I think Sean Dyche, when he shakes the hands of the managers of the big clubs, I think he loves sticking one to them. Yeah. And it did a little bit here. Smash and grab late for a point. I mean, Chelsea looks so in control, Rob, and we know they've won many games 1-0, and for them sometimes that's okay because they're so good defensively, but they can't always be. And there's a well-crafted goal from Burnley. It's nodded down, and Matej Vydra gets the equalising goal. They did miss earlier chances, Rob, for that second goal. We know that Lukaku's out injured at the moment. We shouldn't feel sorry for Chelsea. They got tons of attacking players, but it's the nature that Chelsea play that sometimes they don't get as many goals as maybe their possession and the dominance and territory would suggest. Lukaku coming back will help that, but this is just one of those. And I thought Tuchel spoke well afterwards. They're top of the Premier League table right now after 11 games. He said, you know what, sometimes this happens in football. We control things. They get one breakaway, almost like one good attack that they score, and we drop points. So that's the way it is. Chelsea will be pretty happy with the first part of the season. 11 games in, they're in good spot. To be fair, they've had a pretty easy run, Rob. If you look at their fixtures, they're going to need Lukaku back, Werner back, everybody back. Pulisic's back now as well. So they'll go again, but this was there wasn't much wrong in the performance. Let me say that. It wasn't a 1-1 where like, wow, this could have gone I mean, they played pretty well. Lovely control. They're so structured now. It's so not predictable, but they have great control of games. And just sometimes against teams that drop in a little bit, they don't always finish off some opportunities they create.
And a little bit of credit to Burnley, because you know it's not just a top 6 podcast, and no, I feel for Sean Dyche, because you think of the money that Chelsea have spent over the last couple of seasons. You know, Sean Dyche has got Maxwell Cornet in, which is a big signing for them, and he's done really well for them. Was it 4 or 5 goals already this season? But he has to do it a different way, and he has to continue to toil, and they fight. They fight for every inch and fight for every point, and There's something I like about Sean Dyche, that he wants to shake the hand. He probably shakes the hand and grips the hand of the opposition guy. But, he's a great representation of, listen, it isn't always about money. And if you work hard in the training ground, you get the right players, build a bit of spirit around it, you can still get points as well. So one apiece on that one. Let's talk about one of the stories this week.
Yeah.
Arsenal Football Club, my friend.
Them Gunners.
1-0
what about them Gunners?
Watford. And I'm going to give you a bit of credit, my friend, because you were one of the few people when early on the 3 defeats for Arsenal, and it was all the Arteta and, give him a couple more games, he should be losing his job. And I think you were one of those who said, just let's give him time. Let's give him time and let's take a look at what develops
his
over
new
time.
Team. Yeah.
And, fair play. I think we've seen that now. Arsenal 5th in the table, Rob. 3 points behind Manchester City's. 6 points is it behind Chelsea at top of the league.
Ahead of Man United. Yeah.
Unbeaten in 10. Mikel Arteta's starting to get it right.
Yeah, and he's basically created a new team, which is not easy to do. There was talk that the players that came in were a little bit like, meh, some of the signings that they had, but he had to do that because he needed so many of them. And my point back then is like, well, hang on a minute, let's judge him when we see these players in the same team. I mean, there was injuries, etc. We don't need to go over old ground.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of, well, I don't support. I don't. Yeah. It's nice to see us be able to judge his team now. And, oh, yeah, actually, it looks pretty good. Now, they might have been mid-table and struggled, and we'd say, well, okay, well, this isn't good, and this is his team now. But we're not. We're not saying that. They're 5th place right now after the awful start, and it's young. They can improve. They can get more grooved. They can spend money gradually and increase this team, which is not bad as a base right now. Yeah, I mean, it's becoming a story. When you look at the league table in terms of expected positions, for them to be 3 points ahead of Manchester United, with the Man United team and the expectations compared to Arsenal's kind of awful start and an inexperienced team in this division playing together. It's a pretty good job. And his face afterwards, Rob, of course, we get to see all the interviews.
Yeah.
God, blimey, talk about a difference from a couple of months ago to now with his jovial, relieved and happy face. But fair play. He took a lot of flack around that time with people asking for him to be out and this is not good enough. He's inexperienced. He's another Frank Lampard. I'm like, let's see what he does. And to be fair to him, he got the victory. Emile Smith-Rowe, Rob, is a player that I know that you from the beginning thought this is a special talent. I need to see more of him. Of course, the more you see of him, the more he's flourishing, Rob. He's doing a great job.
Yeah, he's a talent. And Arsenal going absolutely all guns at the moment. They'll enjoy the break and actually look forward to Liverpool away next game. Big game then for both those teams, Rob.
Yeah.
Arsenal, as you say, going very nicely, sitting in 5th place in the table. Okay, just rounding things off, my friend. In the 10 o'clock window, I watched Crystal Palace Wolves. I've got this kind of intrigue with Patrick Vieira and what he's doing at Crystal Palace. And let me tell you, mate, they're doing all right. There were a couple of times during the game against the Wolves team that are in good form. I think won 4 of the last 5 games, and Bruno Lage has certainly started to turn things around. But there's times, Rob, that this Crystal Palace team in the past used to just drop off, sit pretty much around the 18-yard box, get the midfield in front and sit back and not have possession. I'll tell you now, Rob, it's completely different. They want the ball. They want to play from the back. They get it into midfield. They have good rotations. They get it into the front guys. They get it in wide areas. Conor Gallagher makes good runs forwards. They've got a lovely setup. And within a short space of time, you can see the processes in the development that Patrick Vieira is starting to put in.
It's just impressive. This is impressive. This was not an easy job. New team, new start expected. A new manager to the Premier League in Patrick Vieira. Wow. I mean, so far, really, really good. I mean, we all know Conor Gallagher, the player on loan from Chelsea, midfield player, gets another goal with a big deflection. And we know the abilities of Will Zaha. We obviously, consistency, Rob, is what we in the Chelsea, the Crystal Palace fans would want and would expect. I think that's going to be, if he continues in the same way and they play the same way and they pick up the points, regular points, playing this way, That's a really great job done by the ownership, by Dougie Freeman, by Mark Bright, one of your best friends in football, Steve Parrish, the vice chairman, I think, and co-owner. What a good job in a difficult situation where many, me included, like, there's a lot of change at one time. Wolves are playing well. They're a good side. They're a well-coached team. And this was a good 2-0 victory for Crystal Palace at home. They're flying.
Yeah, and I don't want to talk about Palace without talking about my underappreciated performer of the week, Robbie Mustoe. And we're going for the right-back clubs this week. It's the one position I think Gary Neville said, like, it's right back. Nobody really wants to be a right back, or back in the day, nobody did. Well, my underappreciated performer of the week is Joel Ward. Now, he's a player, Rob, that most people would probably not know if they walked past him in the street. He's 32 years of age, came to Portsmouth Academy, has played somewhere near 200 games for Crystal Palace, been a brilliant servant. Is a nice balance to Tariq Mitchell on the other side of a defence that's new with Anderson and Goyi. And he's playing with drive. He's playing with experience. He looks like he's enjoying his football. And I just think sometimes our underappreciated players should be someone who is never going to get the headlines, is never going to be man of the match, is never going to be the star player, but it's an important element to a young team that's developing under a young manager. I just want to give a special mention to Joel Ward.
I'll tell you why it's a good shout. Because this football club got rid of multiple, I want to say like 6-7 players, Rob, that were older, that were over 30. Joel Ward's one of them. And yet this player stayed and he's performing and he's in the first team. And I think when you see that, it kind of happened to me a little bit where our club transitioned between we've signed a load of players and I kind of stayed with it. Joel Ward is staying with it, this exciting time. So he's got to be a decent player. That's my point. He's got to be a good player, Joel Ward. And we haven't, and we'd never pick him out.
When you think of Palace, Conor Gallagher, Zaha, Ben Teke, there's lots of names, isn't there? Goye and Anderson. But you're right. 32 years of age, never gets a mention. So Joel Ward, my underappreciated performer of the week. Just finally wrap things up, mate. Leeds 1, Leicester 1. Both of these teams, I would say, are probably disappointed a bit this season. Leicester, I know, have got European football, but sit in 12th place. With the talent they've got and the manager in charge, should be better. Leeds, sort of similar story. Number of Leeds players, I just don't think quite at the top of the game. Jack Harrison, Calvin Phillips, players who last season were flying with the newness of the league. Just found it a little bit more challenging, I think, second time around. Obviously, they missed Bamford, who's a big miss. Not sure if Aileen played today, but it's one of those where I think after 11 games, both will be glad to get the little break, reset, and then maybe push on a little bit in the sort of second element of the season as we go between now and Christmas.
Yeah, I think you're right. Obviously, some important players still out. They're grinding, Leeds. They're getting better. Beat Norwich last time out, didn't they? I think they've got a good point here against a decent Leicester team, though it's not performing. But I think Leeds are going to be okay. And it's a struggle and it's a grind and it's a second season. And maybe that's into it as well. So I think they're going to be okay. I think Leicester City, Rob, is slightly more concerning. It's kind of a little bit of a drop-off where you'd expect them to be. Now, we know Brendan Rodgers done a brilliant job and the excitement that he brings with this young squad. I just want to ask you a quick question on him. Is there a concern that when the initial excitement and his football and his training and the enjoyment of his football wears off, can he go again? Has he got a little streak in him that will get them focused again and back to their very best? I don't know why. I don't know why I think that there's
I think you've
an element. I don't know why I think
got a sense about this, didn't you? I think before.
Yeah, I don't know.
Interesting. I kind of, if I can defer my answer to the end of the season, I think I'll give you the answer then. Because I kind of feel like possibly I know where you're going and I sense it. And is that the thing that's holding him back from being one of those top 6 managers of one of those very big clubs? I don't know, Rob. You look at James Maddison, who's a real talent, not developing in the way that it should be. It's a little bit of a worry, isn't it? But
let's just fast forward. If they don't finish in the top 10, would that drop your opinion of Brendan Rodgers and his ability to?
I think he struggles to make the next step that I'm sure he wants, and people have talked about. I think he's got to continually be around 6 to 10 to have that. I know there might be a drop-off, but, he's got a decent squad. You've got decent players. I know they're in Europe, but expect a little bit more from them.
Best goal of the weekend, Harvey Barnes for Leicester. Ben's in the top corner from a difficult angle.
It's up there, mate. Yeah, I can't think of too many better, to be honest.
I liked Adam Armstrong's.
The strike from Southampton.
On the Friday, lovely half volley. But Harvey Barnes, what a lovely, accurate, pacey whip into the top corner. Brilliant goal.
Good finish. Okay, mate, we're going to wrap things up there. Just want to make just a quick mention for the international break that's coming up this weekend, because the US have a couple of games, actually, which is going to be interesting. They play Mexico, I believe, on November the 12th, and then they play Jamaica, the Reggae Boys. I think that's November the 16th. And our colleagues at Telemundo, they'll have the call on both of those games. You could go to Universo, the challenge, to watch those. Interesting with the US scene, Christian Pulisic, Rob, playing for Chelsea, back fit now. Will obviously he needs some games. Two important games for him in qualification. And from Jamaica's point of view, Rob, it's interesting. There's a couple of Premier League stars who've got chance to play. You're talking about likes of Andre Gray, Mikel Antonio, Leon Bailey, and Ravel Morrison are available to play for Jamaica. So it'd be interesting to see that game, how strong Jamaica are and how strong the US in what's crucial times of qualifying for the next World Cup. But that's where we're going to leave it, mate. Ole has admitted this week that his team were just not good enough as they got them all in the Manchester derby, while Liverpool got hammered 3-2, hammered by the Hammers in the London Stadium. But it was a big week for the managers. Farke's finished at Norwich, Smith sacked at Villa. We're going for the international break. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. But for now, I'm Earl. He's Musty, together with the two Robbies. Thanks for watching and listening. Stay safe, stay healthy. It's a good night from me.
And it's good night from him. Good night.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch highlights all season long, and be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend at 7 a.m. Eastern. And for even more content, head over to Peacock, where we've got live games, original series, and a dedicated round-the-clock Premier League channel featuring studio shows, classic matches, and much more.